air, some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
Welcome to the channel, everybody. I'm your host, Steven Pfeiffer, aka Stevie Studpup, and this is Studpup Media. On this channel, I'm all about having fun. I'm going to review movies, as you can tell. I'm a huge fan of food, as you can tell, so I'll talk about that. Music, I'm a huge gamer. I've got a wife and kids, so we'll definitely talk about our journey as a family and all kinds of other stuff in between. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell to get all kinds of notifications so you never miss any bit of that journey. And today I'm talking my all-time favorite film franchise, The Terminator. I love Arnold Schwarzenegger in this iconic role, and he's portrayed it for over 30 years. Unbelievable. I was one of the first people there on opening day in a very short line, sadly, but didn't matter. I had huge anticipation and low expectations when I went and saw this. And hey, it worked out well. I was pleasantly surprised at how great this movie actually was. And we had James Cameron coming back, not in a directorial role, unfortunately, but he was there to leave his print with the producer standpoint and also a writing standpoint. So you knew it was going to be better than some of the previous installments, and it definitely blew those out of the water. In addition to bringing back James Cameron, they pick up right where they left off in T2, which basically T1 and T2 were the only ones people seem to care about, so let's scrap all those terrible sequels. Great idea right there alone. Enough, those reasons are alone to go see this film, but me, I'm a huge fan of the franchise, like I said, and so I had to go see this movie. I've seen all of them countless times since I've been old enough to see the ones that have been to theaters. I've definitely gone to see those, and I've enjoyed them for their own reasons. Of course, the first couple are the classics. Everyone after that, you find reasons to like them. There's going to be some moments that aren't so great, but like I said, you'll definitely find some highlights in there somewhere. And while I won't recite the whole entire plot for you guys, I definitely will go ahead and give you some of the highs and lows that will contain some spoilers. So if you haven't had a chance to see this film, I recommend maybe coming back and checking out the review at a little bit of a later time. But to start with the good stuff. And the main reason I love this film is the fact that it picks up right where T2 leaves off. I think that's a great idea. Those are the ones that everybody loves, so let's just get rid of all the other stuff. Let's not try to mix in some other confusing plot points and somehow find a way to recast these characters with people that we don't really care about. No, let's just go ahead and try to use our CGI capabilities with the de-aging, which I thought was excellent. They did a fantastic job with that, and I like that whole idea of just picking up right where T2 left off. So I thought that was definitely a high point. Every great action film has to have an awesome villain, and they nailed it in this movie. The Rev 9 being able to split into two was something we had never seen before, and that was definitely a new element that I thought was pretty cool, a new twist that was definitely felt fresh. Being able to incorporate the capabilities of the T-1000 was definitely awesome because we all love that iconic character, but also using the T-800 endoskeleton, which of course that's the iconic role. And so just blending those two was definitely fantastic, and I really, really thought one of the main highlights of the film overall was the villain, and they did a great job casting that role as well. That guy was pretty menacing, very believable, decent acting capabilities as well, good acting skills, so I really liked him as the Rev 9. And huge spoiler here, I thought that one of the main things overall was the conclusion of Arnold's character as the Terminator role was pretty awesome. And I do say conclusion because he did actually have a quote in there where he was talking to some other characters, but he looked directly at the camera and said, "I won't be back." And I felt like that was definitely his way of saying, guys, I'm kind of hanging it all up in this role. Just enjoy the ride. I've had a great time, and let's just go ahead and have one last hurrah. And that's definitely what it felt like, and I felt like those words kind of signified that. And so I felt like the conclusion of Arnold in the Terminator role was definitely something that really stood out, and I felt was a fitting conclusion overall. The best thing about this film, Linda Hamilton. She stood out and definitely still has that ability to be able to kick butt, take names, and just lead the way overall. And I thought her character was something this franchise really missed overall. We hadn't been able to see it since T2, and so we really, really need to be able to see something like that. In Genesis, it didn't really count, didn't feel the same. It wasn't Linda Hamilton that was playing that role, and so we needed her specifically back in that role. And so she really brought everything to that she had available and really stood out. I thought that she really did amazing with what she could as far as the action and the stunts, and just really brought it overall. And you could tell that she definitely missed this character, and so I really appreciated her coming back. And I think that it really stood out and kind of she really stole the show in my eyes. So Linda Hamilton, definitely big props to what she did in this film. The action and the special effects pretty much just took over the whole entire trailer, so you knew that it was going to take over the whole entire film, and we get tons of that. At times it's a little bit much, but overall I thought it was very well done. The effects of the Rev 9 especially, with the way they're able to split that character into the two, the way that it just kind of, the way that at times it looked almost practical, but you could tell it was still CGI. I thought it was very well done overall. So there's definitely all kinds of highlights. And so for what you're looking for in this type of film, a Terminator action film, good effects, good villain, great returning cast, characters that we really missed and love overall, how could you not have it? And then a big twist in there, of a main character, it nails everything you're looking for. But like any film, you're going to be able to pick it apart and find some things that you don't like. There's going to be a lot of people that have mixed reviews on some of these things that I thought were some of the pros, the highlights, if you will. Especially, John Connor, that twist, I thought it was much needed. It felt like just kind of a fresh breath of air, if you will. There was really nothing else you could do with that character. Why continue to recast and make it confusing and meaningless more than it already felt like? It was time to just do what was intended, and he went out heroic, if you ask me. He saved the planet. He did his mission just like any Terminator would do, is doing their mission, and he did his. And unfortunately it was a sad way for him to die in a sense, but at the same time, like I said, it was very fitting, and it was really just felt like it was time to kind of have him pass that torch to a new savior for existence. And since there's no more Skynet, there's really no, honestly, reason or purpose for him to really continue to be back and roll in this particular franchise. So I felt like that was the main thing that is going to have mixed opinions overall. I thought it was a highlight, but a lot of people are going to throw it right up there instantly as a low point. But some of the things I definitely do think that are kind of negatives, I really wasn't a fan of the overabundance of the visual effects, especially on the Rev 9 character. I know that kind of seems like I'm contradicting myself because I said I did enjoy some of it. I did like a lot of elements, especially the way they kind of had that liquid goo aspect of the T-1000. But just overall, looking like a rubber man at times, the way he was bending, it just looked very fake. There was not quite enough practical effects, and I just didn't care for that. And especially the plane scene, that was, to me, it kind of lost me there. The way they were just kind of flying around at times, I just didn't really care for that. It didn't look bad per se, it just didn't feel like it fit the tone and the feel, and it just dragged on. And so some of the, not necessarily the action, but the effects overall were just, to me, they didn't look bad necessarily, but there was just way too much of it, and I felt the film really became reliant on it at times. One of the main problems I have with this film is I really didn't care a whole lot for the Grace character especially, but even the Dani character. The Dani character I can let slide because, spoiler, she survives, and so I feel like if they are going to continue the franchise, they can really expand on that role and continue with her. But Grace, kind of being similar to that Kyle Reese character where she makes the ultimate sacrifice at the end. Another spoiler there. Sorry, I forgot to mention it ahead of time. But Grace, I just didn't feel like there was enough background there. What we saw was very minimal. It was okay, but it just overall, I just didn't feel emotionally connected quite enough to that character, and just didn't care overall enough for Grace. I mean, she was cool with her capabilities, don't get me wrong, and she definitely kicked some butt and had, some good action scenes mixed in there, but just didn't have enough of a background, and so I just didn't really care enough for those characters. And Dani, like I said, very similar there, especially if you're going to be the savior and you're on screen for a majority of that time, the bulk of this film, we need to know more. And so there's just a lot of things I just didn't really care. I mean, it was sad to see her lose her family throughout the film, but at the same time, I just didn't really feel like I cared enough for that character. So I would have liked to be able to get a little bit more of an emotional connection somehow to those main characters. And the one thing that still kind of hurts is because I'm such a huge fan of this film, I go back specifically for Arnold in this iconic role. And spoiler here, he's definitely very different. He's adjusted after killing off John character, he served his purpose, and he doesn't they don't, self terminate. They can't do that. They don't have a way to just shut down. So, and they don't have a way to go back to the future. So they basically just kind of live in existence where they can't die for however long, many, many years. And so he's able to adapt and basically become accustomed to regular society, and even finds a woman that he's able to take care of and nurture, who has a son who he basically becomes a father figure for. And I believe at some point that young man calls him dad. And so it was a little bit unique. I'm very mixed on everything. I thought it made sense that he had to somehow. He was a computer, so he was capable of growing, learning, I guess you could say. But it was a very weird adaptation, a very weird change for the character, and I'm still kind of mixed on it. I've only seen the film once, so I think upon a rewatching, I'll feel a little bit different. I'll have more of an idea of what to expect going in, so I'll kind of look for those little nuances again. The one thing that kind of stood out to me was when he was making his guests, Linda Hamilton, Grace, and the Dani character, when they finally come to see Arnold, which you don't even see him for about an hour plus in the film, which that might be another negative. It took forever to really get the actual Arnold Schwarzenegger, not the de-aged version, on screen. But overall, he was making beers for his guests, which I thought was a little bit strange. And then when they're out back at one point just conversing, he's petting his dog. And from what I can recall earlier in earlier installments, dogs can detect. They have almost like a sixth sense for Terminators. And I almost feel like sometimes my dog's looking out the window barking, there might be a Terminator coming after us. So you just never know. But lo and behold, he's sitting there petting the dog. I don't know necessarily how that bond, that attachment came there. I know dogs are very smart in my opinion, so I felt like maybe they just were able to sense after all that this character or this Terminator meant no harm overall. It lived out its one negative, intention, which was killing John Connor. Once it fulfilled that purpose it had, it basically didn't have any intention to hurt anything else. And so there's a dog sense that, I guess you could say, but at the same time it was very weird to me overall. So I was very mixed on how they pretty much had the Arnold character just be able to adapt to society and the weird sense of humor. So I can't wait to go back and rewatch it, because that is the character I ultimately come back for each and every single time. And I'm not saying he was terrible. Of course, it was still awesome to see him in action. But it was a little bit weird to kind of see where they took that direction and with this character. And I thought it kind of makes sense. To me, I was kind of felt like I really just didn't quite know what to think, honestly. So I really do look forward to going back, because that for me might be the one thing I'm most mixed upon. It's not the John Connor character's death. For me, it's the way that they made the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator character adapt within society over time. And so I look forward to going back, rewatching, and seeing what I think on that again. With all that said, has this franchise been terminated? We'll have to wait and see, because based on the box office performance, it's not looking too good. Yes, there's definitely some time to go, and it's made a lot of money, but definitely costs a lot more to make than what it's brought in so far. So we'll have to wait and see. I was a big fan of this film. I like the direction that it's going, and I'd like to continue to see where the character development goes. So we'll definitely keep our fingers crossed for the Terminator franchise. And if you guys have seen this film, let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, what you thought overall. And definitely let me know if you think maybe they're going to end up continuing with the franchise and where they could continue to go with it. Potentially a reboot or a remake, why not? If that was the case, of course they couldn't bring back Arnold, maybe some type of a cameo role. That would be interesting. That seems to be kind of what Hollywood's done. They haven't quite done that completely with Terminator, but I could definitely see that being the case in the future at some point. So we'll have to wait and see. But overall, guys, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for actually tuning into this. If you've been able to discover this channel, thank you so much. Make sure to go and hit that like button. and go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because this journey is only getting started. And I want you guys to definitely make sure you're able to enjoy it with me. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any part of it. And thank you again for everything. And until next time, guys, I'll be back.